Join UF Hall of Famer and 14-year NFL vet Shane Matthews every weekday as he brings you all you need to know about your Florida Gators, including news, analysis, and opinions with some of the biggest names in sports. Find us on Spotify, Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Or watch us live at 8 a.m. on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter.
Welcome to Pod Up with Matthews in the Morning, coming to you live from the Crime Prevention Security System studios, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. I am obviously not Shane Matthews. I'll be filling in for him the next 2 days as he's off to the Las Vegas Bowl for his big time color commentary job. I'm joined today by Brent Beaird. How you doing today, Brent?
Well, I'm doing fine. Good to be with you. I know we've got could be a stormy day on tap, Jake, with this front coming through. But for those of us who enjoy cooler weather, beginning tonight, the low in the morning, 41. So got a few 60s and 40s coming up, which would be a nice change.
Yeah, weatherman Brent Beaird giving that to you. I love this time of year. I don't know. I feel like winter Florida is very underrated, or at least kind of ignored, just because it's so hot so much more of the year than it is cold. But I love when it's like this, because you get about 70-degree days. You know, I'm more of a cold weather guy than anything, just because I got a little bit more fat stored up than other people. But it's just great, because you don't get an opportunity to show off the winter looks as much as the summer ones.
That's right, absolutely. Well, and it's just hot here for so long. It's just a nice change of pace. I mean, I don't want it to be 25 degrees, but I mean, when it's 70s and 50s or 60s and 40s, that's refreshing for us, and it's better football weather too.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm more of a 25-degree guy, but you know, if anybody's enjoying the weather talk, I hope they're having a great morning so far. Brent, the Gator basketball team certainly did heat up last night with a win over Ohio, and the Tampa tip-off seemed to right the ship a little bit. 3 wins in the last 4 games, but all of them coming against teams no better than 144 in the net rankings. Brent, did you catch the game last night?
I did, on some of 82-48. Gators started off strong, 42-18 at halftime. So I was certainly impressed with how they did. Agree with the competition is not as good as they will be that's coming up, but they've got Oklahoma Tuesday at 9:30. So there'll be an opportunity for Gator fans to catch them against some better competition. And then, Jake, before we turn around, the SEC season is about to start in college basketball. Florida playing number 19 Auburn on Wednesday the 28th. So we're only a couple of weeks away from SEC action starting up.
I know, getting down to the nitty gritty of the non-conference schedule. If Florida can play like it did against Ohio, in Charlotte against Oklahoma, they'll have a win over Porter Moser, kind of some revenge for what happened in Norman last year. Just a couple of notes from that game, and then we'll move on to the Las Vegas Bowl. Kwesi Reeves, season high 20 points. Also career high 4 3-pointers. Colin Castleton, once again, outside of his normal scoring range, only 6 points last night. Other guys in double digits. Alex Fudge with 13. He's been great as a starter. Trey Bonham with 12. Kyle Lofton with 15 points and 7 assists. And you mentioned the halftime score. It was actually 16-10 with about 10:45 left in the first half. And Florida proceeded at one point to outscore Ohio 30-9. Isn't that crazy, Brent?
Oh, yeah, it really is. But some of the guys that you mentioned who've really done well, Alex Fudge is in his 4th start, a double-double with 13 points and 10 rebounds, which was important too. Trey Bonham kind of rebounded, or Bonham didn't play well against UConn. He was 0 for 8, but he did. And look, no one played well against UConn because UConn is one of the best teams in the nation. So nothing embarrassing about that whatsoever. But it really, as the game went on, Florida got better, and that's important. So hopefully it was a win to build on for the Gators.
Yeah, exactly. Like I said, if they can replicate that performance, they're going to get a nice resume win in Charlotte against the Oklahoma Sooners. Brent, not the only Florida team playing this week. The Gators have a game this weekend in football. They play on Saturday in the Las Vegas Bowl against Oregon State. Since you're only on with me once for the foreseeable future, and this is the only time you'll be on before the game, what are your thoughts on it?
Well, it's a good opportunity for a lot of the backups because of the guys who obviously won't be playing for Florida. I'm excited to see kind of where that goes, and people also need to be aware of the time change and a lot of the TV menus that people have got. It's got that game as a night game, but and correct me if I'm wrong here, Jake, but I've got a 2:30 start for that game, and I believe the Raiders play that night, don't they? So there's one of the reasons for the time change for that game. But our listeners just to be aware of that. Obviously, Anthony Richardson going to the draft. Jack Miller starts. That's going to be fun just to see what he's going to be able to do. Osiris Torrance, who's gotten a lot of awards lately. I mean, he's certainly going to be missed. Ventrell Miller, Gervin Dexter, Justin Shorter declared for the draft and opted out. So there'll be a lot of guys that you don't see, but I think there'll be several that you will who are coming back. Xavier Henderson, looks like he is either the number one receiver or close. Marcus Burke maybe getting some action. Caleb Douglas the same. That'll be interesting. And we'll go into more of the depth chart. But look, this is a difficult team that they're playing at Oregon State. They're tough. They're physical. Damian Martinez, who is close to 1,000 yards, was hurt during the regular season. They expect him to be back. Rajon Wright, their cornerback, won't play. He had a thumb injury. And here's kind of a key stat for Oregon State. They've lost in 2 of the 3 games when they allowed 160 yards or more. So that's kind of a benchmark for the Gators if they can get to that point, beat their rival Oregon at the end of the year, which obviously is a big deal for them. And Jonathan Smith, who played at Oregon State years ago, it's taken over, had 2 nice couple of years at Oregon State, and probably safe to say, Jake, that this Oregon State team is overlooked and I think undervalued with a lot of people, but Gators are going to have to be very careful with their physicality and their toughness along the line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I'll be honest in saying I did not know they were a ranked football team until about November when I saw the CFP rankings come out. This might be Jonathan Smith's best team under his watch, taken over for, I believe, Mike Riley. And they're actually looking for their first double-digit win season since Mike Riley was the coach, all the way back in 2006 was the last time they had 10 or more wins. They won the Sun Bowl. So back when Florida was winning national titles, Oregon State had its last double-digit win season. But like you said, I don't know. There's nothing that really wows you about this team. They just win football games. I mean, look, they were on their way to, only having 8 wins. They were getting trounced against Oregon, and all of a sudden made this spectacular comeback to win the game. I think one thing they'll have to worry about is that rushing attack. They're one of the top 50 teams in rushing. this season and have a pretty good defense, somewhere along the top 60 in defense. And we'll have to see how that works with a new offensive line, because not just Osiris Torrance is out, but also guys like Richie Leonard. Cameron Waits he's not out, but he'll be taking over for Osiris Torrance in that guard spot. And then Christian Williams, a true freshman, will serve as a second string at that left and right guard going on there. So, and with Jack Miller, new signal caller, you'll want to see how that offense kind of translates. He's been dealing with that thumb injury all season, so he's probably been itching to get on the field, and obviously didn't have any opportunity because of the fact that he's been hurt. Are you excited to see what he can do, Brent?
Oh yeah, absolutely. We've heard about him the whole year. Kind of expected to see him before now. So that's going to be very fascinating to see where that goes. Looks like Kyle Engel will be the backup, and Max Brown, the freshman, is listed as third string. And it would be healthy for some of those guys to be able to get in to the game too. Now, Montreal Johnson and Etienne obviously are the running backs. Lorenzo Lingard and Naquan Wright have departed at that time. Ventura Miller obviously sitting out the bowl game. Derek Wingo will get a start. I think that's the thing, Jake. Isn't it just to get more tape on some of these guys? I don't know. Look, it'd be great to be able to win the game, have a winning ledger for the year. That would be certainly icing on the cake. But to get more film on some of these guys against live competition, I think is a thing that would be a real plus for Florida. I think another plus would be win or lose, they get the game over early, and they can concentrate basically on recruiting as we near the early signing period. And the transfer portal obviously is going on. Gators, I'm curious what you've heard too, Jake. Now, obviously, they're bringing in Lagway, and it's going to be a little while before they do at this point. Rashada also in that 2023 class, Lagway in the 24 class. But, and look, Jake and I aren't saying these guys are coming, but there's some interest in Devin Leary of NC State. Everybody's interested in him. Sam Hartman of Wake Forest. I don't believe he's necessarily declared yet, but there's some thought that he might be looking around. Spencer Sanders of Oklahoma State, Jeff Sims of Georgia Tech, Graham Mertz of Wisconsin. Understand was scheduled to be a visitor last weekend. Kentucky is also interested in him too. So, Jake, I think really may be an advantage for this team playing an early bowl game and then having time to really for Billy Napier and his crew to concentrate on this roster where they want to go in recruiting high school kids and then the transfer situation.
Yeah, another guy who's recently been linked. I mean, he just announced that he was entering the portal. Was Coastal Carolina's Grayson McCall. If anybody's watched him, he's a guy who could definitely play outside of that Sun Belt competition. Florida and Auburn seem to be the headliners for Grayson McCall's services. Did want to mention Cliff bringing up a good point, Brent, that Jack Miller, Arizona kid. This is the closest he'll play football near his family probably in his college career. So hope that'll probably be a nice motivating factor for him. But like you said, the transfer portal obviously heating up a lot. Thousands of kids going into the portal, just around the time that that period opened up. But a lot of guys Florida is currently pursuing for quarterback services in order to fill in the spot that Anthony Richardson, or at least create some competition for it.
Sure.
Anthony Richardson will leave behind going to the NFL draft. I would be interested in seeing if they could get a guy like Grayson McCall, or maybe, go for a guy that's got more Power 5 starting experience than him, like a Devin Leary or a Spencer Sanders. I don't really know what wows people, but definitely those are some interesting names to keep to kind of keep in the front of their mind.
And let me also mention about Grayson McCall. He is at Auburn this weekend. And to back up your point, now get these numbers on Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina, and people may say, well, who in the world is that? Well, that's a pretty good club, frankly, and they played well over the years because of McCall. I mean, McCall has 8,000 yards passing, 78 touchdowns. He's rushed for 1,000 yards and 16 touchdowns. So the point of that is he's played at a school that some folks almost have not even heard of, but at the same time, man, this guy's going to be a big-time quarterback, Jake, wherever he goes, when you look at those numbers.
Yeah, another guy that I keep seeing get brought up is Michael Pratt from Tulane. Seems to kind of be the guy that maybe Billy Napier likes. It's around the same Anthony Richardson-esque. I mean, the dude's not a gazelle, but he can run it pretty well. He's a physical guy and a little bit of a higher completion percentage this season. Overall, just a little bit under 60% or so. Speaking of quarterbacks, Brent, we got a listener question. Dan is asking, did you vote for the Heisman?
Yes. Yeah, I did. Max Dugan was my first choice. My second was Bryce Young, and my third was Stetson Bennett. Obviously Caleb Williams won it. Now there were more than one of the Heisman voters, because I talked to some of them, that did not vote for Caleb Williams. There's a little bit of a behavior standard in there, if you will, for the Heisman. And when Williams writes on his fingernails, F Utah, that turned a lot of voters off. Now, didn't bother a lot of people, I get that, but some of the voters I talked to, it did. I really do wish, Jake, that they would have invited Hendon Hooker and Bryce Young. I know they're limited on the people that they can invite to it. So, but they did. I mean, all the guys who went were certainly deserving. And I think another thing for the award, we used to be able to do this, but we can't do it anymore, is during the week leading up to the ceremony, we used to be able to tell people who we voted for and just actually have a kind of an open debate during that week when we did segments. They won't allow us to do that anymore. We actually have to sign off or check off on a promise that we will not. Look, I mean, I get that to a degree, but Jake, I've just wondered, and it used to be, it gave the award a lot more attention than it had in the past. So, with that, if we could debate it during the week, or at least tell people who we voted for, it would, I think it'd be more of a talking point than it is. Do you remember when we used to have that website, Stiff Arm Trophy? I go back to that there was a website called Stiff Arm Trophy that is no longer there, but it was what you had on that was the guesses on who would win, and I give the credit to the creators of that website because they were usually right. I think they polled a lot of the Heisman voters. So, but still, and I get this from time to time. Do we need to do something different with the ceremony, or are people kind of bored with it? And we, it should be jazzed up a little bit. I don't know. I'm not sure the Heisman Trust will ever do that. But at the same time, I mean, it still gets a lot of attention and still one of the most, if not prestigious, end of the year awards there is.
Yeah, I mean, I was at a wedding, so I wasn't able to watch the ceremony, but I do think it does lack some of that hype that it used to have. It used to be like, oh, Heisman ceremonies this weekend. Usually, I mean, it does fall around the Army-Navy game, so that is always a big indicator. But going out and having people be able to talk about it and kind of give sound bites and create more attention to it would be a welcome change that they should come back to. One person does ask, Brent, do you see a Heisman voter reform coming? Just because it just seems like so many guys have filled out so many people have filled out their ballots before the regular season or before the season even ends.
Well, I would be in favor of that. Frankly, I never vote until the season, but basically is over. In other words, our deadline is the Monday at 5:00 after the conference championship games. But look, our listener is right about that. But because you've got people who fill out their ballot maybe 2 or 3 weeks before the season ends, and look, I'm not saying anybody had it this early, but you just got situations like it was looking for a while. Hendon Hooker was going to run away with the award, and then he gets hurt, and unfortunately, out of sight, out of mind. A lot of people almost forgot about him. A lot of people still voted for him, but at the same time, I would certainly agree with that sentiment. That the later you vote, and me again, it's after the championship games. You just get a more of a complete picture of what these guys did during the season.
Yeah, it just seemed like a much more wide open Heisman race this year than others. You couldn't really peg down who probably the best player in college football was this season. I mean, was it Max Duggan? Was it Caleb Williams? Stetson Bennett? The numbers don't impress you, but their argument will be, oh, he did most of his production against, top tier opponents. So it just seemed like nobody was coming out there to reach out and grab it. They were going to have to be given the award. Let's pay some bills really quick, Brent. Talk about Dorian Wiebe. Dorian Wiebe, are you in the market to buy or sell your home? Dorian Wiebe, a realtor with Coldwell Banker MM Parrish, will provide you with fast, friendly, and reliable service. Call her today at 352-562-1411 to help your dreams come home. And tell you about Celebration Point 2. It's where Gators come to celebrate with premium brands like Nike, International Diamond Center, Dave & Buster's, Palmetto Moon, Escapology, Visors Rooftop, and the HBC's Restaurant Spurrier's Gridiron Grill, #1 celebrity polished casual restaurant in America. We will see you at Celebration Point, where Gators come to celebrate. Now, I just want to make this point before we switch over, Brent. Jalen Carter snubbed for some Heisman love. I think his second straight year defensive player has been fantastic and not gotten as much love as they should have.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I would agree with that. Now, what's controversial about Jalen Carter right now is there is some report about some character issues that have cropped up, according to some of these draft experts, and I know you appreciate this. Some of the Georgia beat writers are not real happy about that, because they're asking what are they talking about? Where's that coming from? So, as you get closer here, you're going to have stories like that come out. But I mean, when he's healthy and he's playing, there's no question. He's one of the most destructive forces that you've got on a team that has a lot of them.
Exactly. And it's like clockwork. Some guy's a highly touted, NFL prospect, and all of a sudden stuff gets starting, leaked out. Oh, we're worried about his character. Oh, he's got character problems. Sometimes that can turn out to be true, but other times it just kind of tanks a guy's stock without any recourse for that kind of pursuit. So we're getting around to that season where we just, it becomes the talking season for NFL prospects. People just have nothing to really gauge on, so they go off of what gets leaked to the press or what reporters can get. And, unfortunately, Jalen Carter might be this year's character issues prospect of the draft cycle.
Well, he's going to be a real force to be reckoned with in the playoffs. I can assure you of that. He may have been. I know Will Anderson won it, but I think either Jalen Carter of Georgia or maybe even Drew Sanders of Arkansas had a better year, or let me say this, or it was a little more of an effective year. Frankly, I mean, even Alabama fans have the belief that there were a lot of games that Will Anderson was either double, triple teamed, or just didn't make a lot of plays. So Carter is going to be in there for one of the, if not the best defensive player in the league with that, and obviously a real blow now in that game. If people didn't see this yesterday, for Georgia-Ohio State in the semifinal game, Travion Henderson is not going to be in the game and won't be available. He's going to have surgery on his foot. I'm sure he's looking at the future there. He had to kind of play through that this year, but he's got a fracture and a torn ligament, in his left foot. That's going to be a problem. And geez, Jake, the reality of that, when you're having surgery in December, and this is more of a question on another day, but if you're having surgery this late in the season, it really makes you wonder when he's going to be ready to start practicing again and really getting ready for what his future is going to hold.
Yeah, it's kind of like, John Agbunu or tearing his ACL back in January. You lot for that year long. So okay, you gotta be back in January, but then you got to get back into shape. You got to get back into playing shape, which are two completely different things. You got to get back up to speed, and that could be a whole other month or two to process. It also makes you wonder how much he was playing on it, and maybe really part of the reason Ryan Day was so reluctant to use him at times, because the dude's got insane breakaway speed. Really? But if he's hurt, you can't really utilize that as often. This is actually the second guy with injury who won't be in their playoff game. The other guy being Jackson Smith-Njigba, who hasn't played since October. But I just thought this was an interesting thing to see, because we all kind of have heralded these college football playoff games to be, opt-out proof, or so they said. And seeing a guy like, Smith-Njigba, who will be a first-round pick, a guy like Travion Henderson, who will obviously attract a lot of attention when he's eligible, I think. You see them just be like, you know what? No, I'm not going to play. Just going to get healthy and get ready for next year, whether it was the NFL or college football. So interesting developments there, but still think if a guy's healthy, he's not going to, take the chance of playing in the college football playoff for granted.
Well, and particularly if you're at the point where he is, that Henderson, that if he actually plays, that he would do himself more damage. I'm sure that's probably where they ended up. And by the way, speaking of injuries, for Georgia, on the other side there, Ladd McConkey and also Warren McClendon, the offensive lineman, McConkey being the receiver, but they both got hurt in the SEC championship game. Now, Kirby Smart said they've still got time to get those guys back. They're still more than a couple of weeks away from playing in the game, so that would give them time. He certainly didn't say that they would not be playing. The guy they're getting back, which is so important, is A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell, the Georgia wide receiver, who caught the touchdown pass on a perfectly thrown ball in the national championship game last year, has been out for quite a while, but he's coming back. And think about this, Jake. What Georgia really has not had this year is a number one tailback and a number one wide receiver. They've done this more by committee than anything else, which really is amazing, and shows you more about how good this team really is. But Mitchell will be back. He is a vertical deep threat for them that they really haven't had, and opens up probably a little more for those tight ends. Jake, as if those tight ends need any more help, right? As good as they are for Georgia.
I don't think they need much to get open. I mean, and you mentioned them, not having a number one wide receiver, tailback. It doesn't hurt being able to hand off speed sweeps to your tight end, and he can pick up 70 yards and a touchdown for you either.
No, I agree with that. And listen, Brock Bowers, this was actually some conversation among Heisman voters. If Brock Bowers, look, there's nothing wrong with his stats, but on a lot of teams, those stats may have been doubled. But when you've got as many weapons as Georgia has, Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator, has really spread the wealth, and he deserves credit for that. But the point is, and to your point, if Brock Bowers would have caught, 50, 60 passes or something of that ilk, I think he may have gotten a lot more attention than he did. Maybe the most amusing thing for this Georgia team, and I don't think the Georgia coaching staff thought it was amusing, a lot of other people did, is Georgia Tech hiring Buster Faulkner, and I give John Bryce of Football Scoop credit for this, as their offensive coordinator. Now, if you hadn't heard of Faulkner, we understand that, but he was one of their analysts, and Georgia Tech wants to hire him. Brent Key has been named replacing Jeff Collins, who used to be on that Florida staff. So I just thought that was interesting. You see that every now and then, Jake, to where your one of your biggest rivals wants one of your coaches, so you got a little bit of I guess give and take with that on there, but that raised an eyebrow or two for folks looking at Georgia this week.
Yep. Caught up with Matthews in the morning, your number one source of Georgia football analysis. Tell you about Chris Doring Mortgage before we get out of here for a break. At Chris Doring Mortgage, they do mortgage lending right, helping home buyers throughout Gainesville and North Central Florida. Call Chris Doring Mortgage today at 352-244-0840. We'll take a quick break. Brent's going to join us again for the second half of the show, so be right back.
We want to take this moment to thank all our sponsors who keep the show going and pay the bills. Our premium sponsors are Crime Prevention Security Systems, large enough to serve you, small enough to care. Titan MRI, Gainesville's only locally owned and operated MRI facility. Meldon Law, the only official law firm partner of the Florida Gators. Peachland Dental, Gator Nation's first choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte. Comfort Temp, comfort is our business, peace of mind is our promise. QC Kinetics, live pain-free with QC Kinetics. Our gridiron sponsors are Auto ER, UF Bookstores, Celebration Point Town Center, Chris Doring Mortgage, Silverback Concrete Co., Ruse Ogra State Farm Insurance, Doreen Wiebe Realtor Caldwell Banker MM Parish. Our touchdown sponsors are Campus USA Credit Union, Adams Rib Company, Gator Dominoes, Celebrate Primary Care, Gator Bait Media, Okido America, Style Cuts, Ironwood Golf Course, Big Mills Cheesesteaks, MB Listing, McDonald's of Gainesville, 84 Lumber, Tropical Smoothie Cafe, Avra and Smith, Dowling Signs, Baker's Sporting Goods, Silver Cube Billiards and Sports Bar. If you are interested in promoting your business on the show, visit potupwithshane.com and click the Advertise button. Again, thank you to all the great businesses that support the show. If you like what we are doing here, make sure you follow us and support the businesses that support us.
Just like that, we're back. Tell you about Peachland Dentistry. Peachland Dentistry, Gator Nation's number one choice for dentistry in Port Charlotte and surrounding areas. Visit them at peachlanddental.com and join us on Friday for our Peachland Dentistry JC and QB weekend picks. Unfortunately, I probably will be the QB on that one again. We're rejoined by Brent Beaird. Brent, still some more stuff on national scale to talk about. Obviously, we got in a little bit of the Las Vegas Bowl with the Gators, but bowl season starts tomorrow, and there's actually a real humdinger on there. Later on today in the afternoon, you'll have UTSA and Troy, which would be a great game. But I was going to ask you, Brent, what non-New Year's Six bowl are you most excited about?
Maybe the one you just talked about, because you've got UTSA is 11-2 and Troy is 11-2.
Yeah, that's insane.
Look, that's amazing, frankly. At Troy, now Neil Brown left Troy to go to West Virginia. John Sumrall, who has actually been an assistant for some SEC schools, is taking that job over and has done a really good job. So that this is a game, frankly, between two teams who have done extremely well. And one, particularly in their conferences. So if you want an early game to watch, there are two on Friday, and then there are like six, just wonderful, six on Saturday. Now, including the Cincinnati Louisville game is at 11 o'clock at the Fenway Bowl. If you wanted cold weather, Jake, that may be your bowl for that one, for the Fenway Bowl. Yeah, hopefully it'll be above freezing at some point during that game. But look, I enjoy a lot of these early bowls. It gives us a chance to really be able to look at teams that we normally wouldn't be able to look at. I mean, the Bahamas Bowl starts tomorrow at 11:30 with Miami of Ohio and UAB. Bill Clark obviously retired from UAB, who is a tremendous football coach. So good for them for being in a bowl. But Saturday, Jake, it's just like almost a regular season Saturday where you've got games that start around 11 or noon and they go past midnight, the last game being the Frisco Bowl with Boise State and North Texas. That starts at 9:15. How about that?
I love a good football after dark scenario.
Yes.
That game between UTSA, the Cure Bowl, I believe it is, in Orlando.
It is.
Go over there. UTSA and Troy. That might combine. I might set the record for most combined wins between two teams in a bowl game prior to Christmas.
Probably.
Everyone else has like 7 wins, 6 wins, and then you got 2 ranked teams in the top 25 with 22 combined wins playing in the second bowl game of the year.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And there's some good players in this game. Gunnar Watson, the Troy quarterback, threw for over 300 yards in the Sun Belt title game. This will be a fun game to watch. And, I mean, it's one of those things, for people who are working, if you have it on in the background, it starts at 3 on ESPN. So SMU also plays in the New Mexico Bowl on Saturday. They've got BYU in that game, Fresno State and Washington State, in the LA Bowl, the Lending Tree Bowl, Southern Miss and Rice. And then obviously you've got the Florida's games on Saturday. So there'll be a lot of folks watching. But again, we've got Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday of next week. There's either 1 or 2 bowl games on every day, Jake. So for us college football fans who just love to watch games, it'll be between Christmas shopping and whatever that we're doing in our normal life. It'll be a good week of football.
Yeah, exactly. My favorite one will probably be the Holiday Bowl, Oregon and UNC, Bo Nix versus Drake May.
Great point.
UNC's got a Swiss cheese offense, so I'm excited to see. And their not offense, they have Swiss cheese defense, and their offense can put up points. So I think there'll be a lot of scoring going on in this bowl game. Now, outside of those, my favorite New Year's Six bowl will probably be the Cotton Bowl, Tulane USC, or the Orange Bowl, Clemson and Tennessee. What about you, Brent?
Well, I would say something similar with that. And look, we're pretty excited, Jake, about this South Carolina Notre Dame Gator Bowl. I mean, they certainly wanted a bowl where they could sell tickets. They're going to be able to do that. They've got certainly in South Carolina a fan base that is more than excited about where they're going. Particularly Shane Beamer's team has played really well the last two Novembers. And look, they really thought they might be just dead in the water after being rounded by Florida, but they really were able to put things together, beating Tennessee and then beating Clemson. Now, I wonder if this surprised you like it did me. Marshawn Lloyd, the really very good running back for South Carolina, has entered the transfer portal. Lloyd came in as heralded of a freshman that South Carolina's had a long time, tore his ACL, had to recuperate from that, and he came back this year and did okay, and now he's in the transfer portal. But the thing that really has kind of gotten South Carolina fans up in arms is they have hired Dowell Logans, who is the tight ends coach at Arkansas, as their offensive coordinator. They introduced him yesterday, and Shane Beamer has gotten a lot of criticism for this hire from some of the beat writers at South Carolina. So he kind of went on a tangent yesterday defending Logan's in the program at that time too. So, and again, how good he would be, I don't know, but they do need some help with their offense. Lloyd was, as we mentioned, was hurt most of the year, played a little bit, and he missed several games at that point too. Spencer Rattler really came on at the end, but Jake, we both know that he can be very inconsistent during times. So it was if people haven't seen this, it was quite a press conference yesterday with Beamer, frankly, just defending a lot of the criticism that he's heard with this program.
Yeah, I was trying to figure out because everybody was talking about him, but I couldn't find what was going on. So you're enlightening me right near me right now, live on the air, Brent. Also want to mention, if you were comment, Dan, San Jose State plays Tuesday in Idaho. It'll be 19 degrees. Speaking of that cold weather, Brent.
Yeah. Do they have hand warmers in their gloves at that point, Jake? Or good gracious alive, how I wonder how. I guess they're used to it to some degree, but probably safe to say the running game will be a priority that day. You think?
Yeah, probably wheel out the heaters in the Boise State locker room for him. Yeah. Cliff says that he'll be in Vegas on Saturday, so he'll get to say hi to Shaner. And then we also this will help us transition to what else I want to talk about with you, Brent. Andy asking you, do you think Mike Leach's death will make other coaches give more consideration to their health with all the pressures and time commitments of their jobs?
I think that's one of the most important redeeming things that come out of this. And frankly, that needs to be talked about. And again, Mike Leach, a lot of this we understand. He battled pneumonia during the season, and there was a point, Jake, that the staff asked him just to step away for a while and get well. Now, he got better, we understand, over the last few weeks, but the heart issues obviously were there, and I don't know what he did about that as far as did he have a checkup at some point, but now I do hope, and that's a really great text. I really do hope that coaches will take their health more seriously. And frankly, Jake, I don't know if programs can do this, but as much as they've got at stake with coaches and the coaching staffs, and as much money and so forth is involved with this, there ought to almost be something mandated within coaches that they have a regular physical, and I don't mean just an EKG, but I mean maybe an echo and even a heart cath, just to see every year or a few years just how these guys are actually doing, because and I talk to different coaches like you do, and they'll be quick to tell you, look, we don't sleep much, we don't eat right, we don't get to exercise the way we need to because we're on the phone with the recruits, or we're at practice, or we're in some meeting and so forth. And Jake, there's got to be something good that comes out of this, and that would be something good, that if these coaches really are able to take their health a lot more seriously than they have in the past.
Yeah, the college football world still definitely reeling from that, from the news of Mike Leach's passing. And look, Florida fans are all too familiar with coaches' health being jeopardized just for the stress of the job. I mean, look, whether people want to believe it or not, Urban Meyer cited the pressures that came with being at Florida as a detriment to his health. And look, and when he talks about it, you can see that he was almost unhealthy for how much pressure he put on himself when he was coaching big-time college football, whether it was at Florida, whether it was at Utah, whether it was at Ohio State. But it's just so interesting, I don't want to say juxtaposition because I don't like using SAT words with no context, but the difference between Mike Leach wanting to keep going while having pneumonia, but also Mike Leach being this guy that didn't take himself too seriously. Well, people talking about how if you wanted to interview him, you would get his personal cell number and he would call you back. And the one guy talked about how he interviewed Mike Leach, and Mike Leach was calling him from practice. He was in the middle of practice running it and doing an interview. And that's kind of, look, Mike Leach was a very complicated person, but he definitely didn't seem like a guy who was really that worried or took himself so seriously that he had to be like all the other cookie cutter coaches in terms of what he said or what he did or anything like that. And stories will keep coming out about him, but the college football world definitely lost one of its primary figures in the fact that he was revolutionary, not just on the field with the air raid attack and him and Hal Mummy developing that, but also just the way he kind of carried himself as this guy who you could literally anything could come up in a press conference with him.
I'm just really grieved about his loss, I'll be honest with you, and a lot of it is just because of what you said. He was just so unconventional, and he was so refreshing. Now, a lot of times he did that to keep from talking about his team and giving away any secrets, but at the same time, he was a real, genuine human being in how he treated people, which was really refreshing. And I've got three stories that I'll tell real quick, Jake. One of them was the Nevada coach was talking about when he was on the staff with him at Washington State, and they were riding on the bus to the Southern Cal game, and instead of looking at the playbook or worried about what they were going to do for Southern Cal, Leach was on the bus listening on his phone to Rosetta Stone, trying to learn how to speak Spanish. How many head coaches are doing that on their way to the stadium which is just amazing. Another story that came about, people have 1,000 of these, was Leach was in his office talking on the phone rang, so he starts this conversation, and the conversation went on for an hour. There was a guy who was sitting there, just kind of doing normal things in the coach's office when this conversation was going on. So they talked for an hour. The call gets dropped. Leach calls the person back as soon as the call was dropped, and then they talk for another 30 minutes. Leach hangs up, and the person in the office says, just in casual conversation, "Well, Coach, that was a long conversation. Who was that?" Leach says, "I don't know. It was a wrong number."
That's good. Oh.
And listen, Matt Hayes, who rides for Saturday Down South, does radio and lives here in Jacksonville, said that he was on the phone with the Leach for an hour at some point, and Leach starts making noise, and Matt says, "Coach, are you on the toilet?" and Leach says, "Yeah, but I didn't want to have to call you back because the conversation was so good."
I did read that one. That was
incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah. I saw one where this guy, he was a student, he was a reporter, and he wanted to talk to Mike Leach about the air raid offense, and he gets a call during class, ends up talking on Leach for hours, and they end up actually being like kind of friends. Like he would text Mike Leach all this stuff out. It was like one of those internet questions. You had to pick two groups of animals to defend you from the other groups of animals that were going to come after you.
Yeah.
And they had a whole conversation about it. And I just think that's the guy people are probably going to remember is that Mike Leach.
Oh, yeah.
And before we get back to some more Mike Leach talk as we round out the show, I'll tell you about this day in sports history. Brent, on this day in sports history, December 15th, Carson Palmer wins the 68th Heisman Trophy in 2002, and Sam Bradford wins the 74th Heisman Trophy in 2008. That brought to you by Comfort Temp. At Comfort Temp, comfort is our business. Peace of mind is our promise. Please beat the summer heat and schedule your air conditioner's tune-up today. Keeping you chill and the Florida heat far away. Comfort Temp Heating and Air. Call them at 352-376-2366. Yeah, I think people just still can't believe that a guy like Mike Leach is gone, and they've already gone ahead and hired the defensive coordinator to kind of not fill in, but take over that head coaching role to help. I feel like they mentioned, something that was really important was to help with the transition of the players dealing with that grief. I think it was really smart of them to stay in-house just so, you don't bring another guy in and he has to tell you, like, hey, I know how you feel. When you have a guy right there who knows exactly how those players feel and automatically can help relate to them and can help them kind of deal with that grief in a healthy way, and they can definitely do that in the off season. And I think another great thing is that they're going to play in their bowl game. They play in, I believe, the ReliaQuest Bowl, which is the former Outback Bowl. And they said, look, Mike will want us to play this game. And I think it's absolutely right for them to do so because, why would you not want to do something that, if you went up to Mike Leach and said, hey, coach, when you die, we're not going to play the game, he's going to tell you you're absolutely wrong for doing that. You absolutely should play the football game. So, like I said, terrible loss for the college football community this week.
Well, a couple of things of that real quick. Zach Arnett is the interim, he being the defensive coordinator, and frankly, one of the better defensive coordinators in the league. And a lot of people would have been after him too. But the other thing that complicates this for Mississippi State is they don't have an athletic director right now.
Right.
Cohen, their athletic director, went to Auburn. So you would have you would have to get an athletic director basically before you got another head coach. So I agree with Jake. It was a really shrewd move on their part, is to keep it in house. And Jake, my question, and I'm just kind of asking this out loud, is now they may keep Barnett, it may work out well, but I'm wondering with the kids they recruited, and again next week is the early signing period. I mean, you've got to have some continuity there, but in the long run, I really wonder if they don't stay with Arnett, do they go to a air raid guy? And look, he's got. If people haven't seen this, Mike Leach has got as good of a coaching tree as really anybody does. So I mean, Lincoln Riley, Dave Aranda, Sonny Cumbie, Dana Holgerson, Art Briles, Neil Brown, Josh Heupel, Sonny Dykes, just to name a few. And Jake, I'm just wondering is with the guys they recruited and what they know with his offense, if they don't stick with Arnett, do they go and get somebody from that coaching tree and bring them in for, frankly, State's a pretty good job, and I think Mike Leach made it even a better job.
Yeah, I wonder what they're going to do there too, just because, like you said, will the Arnett hire work out? Will they go, get a guy to run the offense who is an air raid guy, or like you said, look for a head man who actually is an air raid kind of coach? And there's several who have Power 5 experience. Maybe Neil Brown. I mean, West Virginia is not exactly the greatest team right now. Dana Holgerson, he turned West Virginia into what it is. There's a lot of different ways they could go, but that's going to wrap it up for us for the show. I want to thank Brent for staying on the whole hour. I want to thank our production team, especially my boy Bennett running it over at Weeby Productions. I'll be back on Friday. We'll have JC on. We'll get some weekend picks. Have a great weekend, Brent.